in the hope that somebody will come along and say, there's money in this, let's support Meghan and her as ever brand.
Something about Meghan Markle's story just doesn't sit right. And it's not the lazy headlines the tabloids have been pushing for years. This feels deeper than gossip or media drama. I'm talking about something that seems structurally off, something that challenges the very foundation of who Meghan Markle says she is and how that story has been presented to the world. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The tea is just starting to heat up. Her name, her past, and the one detail most people never even think to question about a public figure, her age. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. Her age? Seriously? That's what this is about? Stay with me for a moment, because by the end of this video, you might find yourself asking some very uncomfortable questions. Questions that Meghan Markle has never clearly addressed. Questions that critics claim her legal team has pushed back against, and questions that one of Britain's most relentless investigative biographers, Tom Bower, spent years digging into. Today, we're walking through the entire trail people have pointed to: old magazine archives, university timelines, statements from people who say they knew her back then, documents that some observers claim were quietly updated, even family members whose memories don't line up with the official timeline. This isn't being presented as gossip. Supporters of these claims argue there's a trail of records and testimonies that they believe deserve a closer look. And according to them, when you start laying those pieces side by side, the story becomes a lot more complicated than it first appears. So before we even get near the age controversy, we need to understand one important figure behind many of these claims. Who exactly is Tom Bower, and why do people take his work seriously? Tom Bower is not some random blogger chasing clicks. He isn't a social media personality throwing opinions into the void. For decades, he has built a reputation in the United Kingdom as one of the most aggressive investigative biographers around. The man has spent years digging into powerful figures who assumed their private stories would stay buried. He has written major investigations into media tycoon Robert Maxwell, businessman Mohammed El Fayed, entertainment figure Simon Cowell, and even King Charles III back when he was still Prince of Wales. These were not easy subjects, and his books are known for heavy sourcing, legal vetting, and layers of fact-checking before publication. Then, in 2022, Bower released Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors. The book caused a massive stir the moment it hit shelves. In it, Bower presented a highly critical portrayal of Meghan Markle, describing her as intensely ambitious and extremely strategic about every step in her career. According to Bower, his reporting relied on a wide network of sources: palace insiders, former friends, colleagues from her acting career, and even members of her extended family. The book quickly became a bestseller, and almost immediately strong pushback followed. Meghan's representatives rejected many of the claims and raised serious objections about the portrayal.
With the show, certainly what hospitality has felt like for me is, how do you make people feel comfortable?
But Bower stood firm, insisting his work was supported by documents, interviews, and sources both public and confidential. He had documents, he had sources, and when legal warnings started flying around, the story didn't simply disappear. Tom Bower kept standing by his reporting. In fact, he's reportedly preparing another updated edition of his book, and insiders claim Meghan Markle's team has been paying very close attention to what might be included this time around. So when Bower publicly raises questions about details in Meghan Markle's timeline, supporters of his work say it carries weight. This isn't coming from a random internet rumor. This is a writer whose entire career has been built on digging through records and challenging powerful people who believed their stories were airtight. Still, it's important to remember something here.
Claims raised in books or investigations don't automatically mean they're proven facts. Meghan Markle and her representatives have strongly rejected many of the allegations made about her over the years. but the questions themselves continue to circulate online and in media discussions, which is why they keep resurfacing. One question that critics often bring up sounds simple on the surface. If these claims are so easy to dismiss, why not just release additional documents and shut the debate down completely? That's the argument some commentators make. Others say the issue shouldn't even be taken seriously. Keep that question in the back of your mind as we walk through the official timeline that has always been presented publicly. According to public records, Meghan Markle, whose full name is Rachel Meghan Markle, was born on August 4, 1981 in Los Angeles, California. That would place her in her early 40s today. She attended Northwestern University and graduated in 2003 with degrees in theater and international studies. Her acting career began shortly afterward in the mid-2000s. She appeared in smaller television roles and worked as a briefcase model on Deal or No Deal in 2006. Then, in 2011, she landed the role that changed everything, Rachel Zane on the legal drama Suits. Years later, her life took a dramatic turn when she married Prince Harry in 2018, entering the British royal family. The couple later welcomed their son Archie in May 2019 and their daughter Lilibet in June 2021. On paper, that timeline appears clean, straightforward, and easy to follow.
Let's get through these next couple years, create community, which was always so important to both of us in our new environment.
But critics like Bauer claim that when you start comparing older media references and public records, some small details appear that don't neatly line up with the narrative. One example frequently cited by people discussing this topic involves an old magazine article. According to Bauer and others who have examined it, a March 1997 issue of 17 magazine included a brief feature mentioning Meghan Markle and listing her age as 21. Now pause for a moment and think about that claim. If she was born in August 1981, she would have been 15, turning 16 later that year, not 21.
Supporters of Bauer's research argue this creates a large discrepancy.
However, critics point out that magazine features, especially short mentions in print media, have historically contained mistakes. Age errors and editorial mix-ups have happened many times before. Still, Bauer reportedly went further than just quoting the reference. He said he checked the archived issue, verified the publication date, and confirmed the wording himself. According to him, the article exists exactly as described. So that leaves observers debating two very different possibilities. Either the magazine made a strange editorial mistake about the age of a relatively unknown teenager at the time, or there is some confusion somewhere in the historical record that still hasn't been fully explained. So that leaves two possibilities sitting on the table. Either the magazine made a strange mistake that somehow slipped through editing and was never corrected, or someone somewhere along the line gave the magazine the wrong information about her age. Now, pause and really think about that second scenario for a moment. Who would benefit from a teenager being listed as older in a national publication? Critics who question the timeline suggest it could help someone appear more mature, more experienced, or more credible in certain situations. In highly competitive industries like entertainment, perception can matter almost as much as reality.
But again, there's another side to this conversation.
Magazine profiles, especially short features, have a long history of publishing incorrect ages, misspelled names, and other small factual errors. It happens more often than people realize. So while some commentators view the article as suspicious, others argue it could simply be an editorial slip that went unnoticed. Still, the people raising these questions ask something interesting. If your age had always been listed correctly everywhere, would you even remember some random old magazine feature getting it wrong? Probably not. Most people would shrug it off and move on. But critics claim that if an old article accidentally revealed a detail someone didn't want public, they might be extremely motivated to make sure it stayed buried in old archives. That's the speculation being pushed by some commentators who continue to debate this issue online.
Now, let's move to another point that critics sometimes bring up, the IMDb listing. Because even if the magazine example could be explained away as a mistake, supporters of Bauer's argument say there are other details that caught their attention. IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, is widely used across the film and television industry. For actors and actresses, an IMDb page functions almost like a professional resume. It lists acting credits, career information, biographies, and sometimes a birth year. According to Bauer and others who have discussed this topic, Meghan Markle's page at one point listed her birth year as 1977 instead of 1981. If true, that would create a 4-year difference from the date that appears in most public records today. Supporters of Bauer's claims argue that this is more difficult to dismiss because IMDb profiles are often connected to the entertainment industry itself. However, there's an important detail to remember. IMDb information is frequently edited and updated by contributors, agents, publicists, or database editors. Errors and temporary listings have happened many times before across thousands of profiles. Still, critics of Markle have used the example to argue that age can sometimes be presented differently in Hollywood depending on career strategy. In the entertainment business, age can influence casting opportunities, credibility, and the types of roles someone is considered for. Some performers have reportedly adjusted their listed ages at different points in their careers to match industry expectations. That doesn't automatically mean deception. It can also reflect how profiles were managed or corrected over time. Bauer has claimed that the IMDb listing was changed at some stage, pointing to screenshots and archived versions of the page that circulated online. But Markle and her representatives have never confirmed that interpretation, and public records still list her birth year as 1981. So once again, observers are left with competing explanations.
One side believes these discrepancies suggest something unusual about the timeline. The other side says the differences are easily explained by database edits, media errors, or outdated information that was later corrected. And this is where the discussion starts moving into another area entirely: university timelines and records that some commentators believe raise additional questions. Meghan Markle attended Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and according to widely reported records, she graduated in 2003 with degrees connected to theater and international relations. That timeline has been repeated in countless biographies and profiles over the years. On paper, it seems straightforward and perfectly normal. If Meghan Markle was born in 1981 and graduated in 2003, she would have been around 22 at the time of graduation. That's the standard path for most college students who go straight through a 4-year program without delays. Nothing unusual about that at all. But critics who question parts of the timeline say they tried to dig deeper into the details surrounding those years. Tom Bauer, while researching his book, reportedly looked beyond public summaries and started examining alumni directories, archived photographs, and people who studied at Northwestern during that period. According to his account, he contacted former classmates and reviewed group photos from student clubs and campus activities. And this is where some observers claim the story becomes more complicated. In several photos from student organizations, Meghan appears alongside classmates who today would be in their early to mid-50s. That's noticeably older than someone who would currently be in their early 40s. One image often mentioned in these discussions comes from a university salsa club group photo. Meghan can be seen standing among other students in the picture, smiling with the group. Bauer reportedly contacted several individuals who appeared in that photo and asked when they were born. According to his description, many said they were born in the early 1970s. Critics argue that raises a question worth asking.
Was Meghan simply part of social groups with older students, which absolutely does happen at universities, or were the students in those photos actually closer to her own age? University clubs often mix students from multiple years and age groups, so the answer isn't necessarily obvious. Bauer also quoted an anonymous former student who suggested there had been casual speculation about her age during college. According to that individual, some people believed she might have been older than publicly stated. However, anonymous recollections years later are difficult to verify and are often debated by readers and researchers alike. Supporters of Meghan Markle strongly reject these interpretations, pointing out that photographs and personal memories are not reliable proof of someone's age. College communities frequently include graduate students, returning students, and people from different age ranges who socialize together. So those details alone don't settle anything definitively. But the questions raised by critics didn't stop there. Bauer also spoke with Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, while researching the book. And according to Bauer's account, part of that conversation produced a moment he described as unexpected. Thomas Markle has given many interviews since Meghan married Prince Harry. Over the years, he has spoken openly about her childhood, her early ambitions, and their family history. At times, he has shared very personal memories, sometimes to the discomfort of people watching from the outside. Because of that openness, Bauer said he asked what should have been a simple question during their conversation, a question most parents could answer instantly without even thinking. He asked, "What year was Meghan born?" In theory, that should be the easiest detail in the world for a parent to recall, something almost automatic, something that doesn't require a moment's pause. A child's birth year is one of the most basic facts a parent knows. It's the kind of detail that comes instantly, the way you remember your own name or your own birthday. But according to Tom Bauer's account of their conversation, Thomas Markle paused when the question came up, and instead of directly stating a year, he reportedly said something unexpected.
He told Bauer, "You should check the records yourself." Not a quick answer, not an immediate confirmation, just a suggestion to look it up in official documents. Now, to be fair, there are plenty of harmless explanations for a moment like that. Interviews can be awkward. People sometimes choose their words carefully when they know their comments could end up in print. Memory lapses happen, and sometimes people simply don't want to get pulled into another public debate. But critics who follow this topic say the moment stood out because of the broader context. Thomas Markle has spoken in detail about many parts of Meghan's childhood during various interviews. He has recalled stories about school projects, family trips, and early moments from her life with remarkable clarity. His memory about those years often seems very sharp. So some observers have wondered why, when asked about the birth year specifically, he reportedly avoided giving a direct answer. Bauer himself has said he found that response unusual, though it's important to remember that only his description of the conversation has been published. There is no recording publicly available that confirms exactly how the exchange unfolded. And then the discussion moves to another figure who has spoken publicly about Meghan in the past, her half-sister, Samantha Markle. Her perspective adds yet another layer that critics often point to when debating the subject. Samantha Markle is Meghan's older half-sister from Thomas Markle's earlier marriage. According to commonly reported family timelines, Samantha was born in 1964, while Meghan was born in 1981. That would create a 17-year age gap between them. If those dates are correct, it would mean Samantha was already a teenager when Meghan was born. By the time Meghan reached early childhood, Samantha would likely have been starting adulthood and possibly living her own independent life. With a gap that large, their childhood experiences would naturally be very different. However, critics sometimes reference comments Samantha has made in interviews where she suggested the two were closer in age growing up than people realize. That statement has been interpreted in different ways depending on who is reading it. Some people believe Samantha simply meant they spent time together despite the age gap. Others, who question the timeline, argue that her wording implies the difference might have been smaller than the commonly reported 17 years. But there's another possibility too. Families often describe sibling relationships in emotional terms rather than literal ones. Someone might say they felt close in age simply because they shared experiences or memories together, even if the actual numbers were far apart. Still, critics continue to examine these details closely. They argue that if Meghan had been born earlier, say sometime in the mid-1970s, the age gap between the sisters would shrink considerably. Under that scenario, their childhood timelines could overlap more easily. Of course, that idea remains speculation. Official records and widely reported biographies continue to list Meghan Markle's birth year as 1981, and there has been no verified document showing otherwise. But supporters of the alternative theory say these questions become even more interesting when you start looking at another area entirely: her early acting career and the timeline surrounding those first Hollywood opportunities. In 2006, Meghan Markle appeared as one of the briefcase models on the game show Deal or No Deal. If she was born in 1981, that would place her around 25 years old at the time. For a young actress still trying to establish herself in Hollywood, that path would be completely normal. Many actors take smaller television jobs, commercials, or game show appearances while waiting for a bigger opportunity to come along. But critics who question the broader timeline argued that her early career raises a few interesting points when viewed through that lens. Tom Bauer, while researching her background, reportedly examined the sequence of roles she took during those years and how long it took for her breakthrough moment to arrive. According to Bauer's interpretation, the path looked less like a fast-rising young actress and more like someone grinding through the industry for a long time before finally catching a break. However, it's important to point out that this experience is extremely common in Hollywood. Many performers spend years, sometimes decades, auditioning and taking small roles before landing the project that finally changes everything.
Women don't need to find a voice. They have a voice, they need to feel empowered to use it, and people need to be encouraged to listen.
But again, there is no verified evidence supporting that alternative timeline. Public records and official biographies consistently list Meghan Markle's birth year as 1981. The discussion mostly reflects speculation from commentators who interpret career timing in different ways. Then the conversation shifts to another moment that critics often bring up: an amendment made to an official document after the birth of Prince Archie in 2019. When Archie Harrison was born in May 2019, his birth certificate was initially filed listing his mother's name as Rachel Meghan Markle, which is Meghan's legal name. That entry followed the standard format used in official documents.
In celebrating the 125th anniversary of women's suffrage in your country.
Later, however, the certificate was amended and the entry was changed to Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. The change drew attention online and sparked debate among royal watchers. But officials later explained that the amendment reflected royal naming conventions rather than any attempt to alter personal details. Changes to titles on royal birth records have occurred before in similar circumstances. Still, critics who study these timelines say the amendment caught their attention because it shows how official records connected to the royal family can sometimes be updated after the fact. Tom Bauer looked into this change closely, and according to his reporting, it raised eyebrows among some royal insiders. Several people he spoke with reportedly suggested that amendments to royal birth certificates are not something that happens often, making the update feel unusual to those watching the situation. So naturally, the question critics began asking was simple: why was the change made in the first place? Bauer's interpretation of the document change is one that some critics say raises an interesting point. According to his theory, when a person's full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, appears across multiple official records, those documents can easily be connected and cross-referenced. School records, passports, contracts, public filings. Over time, they create a clear paper trail that links different stages of someone's life together. But if a document replaces that legal name with a formal royal title instead, critics argue it could make that trail slightly harder to follow for anyone searching through public records under the original name. That's the argument Bauer presents when discussing the birth certificate amendment. However, there is another explanation that royal experts have pointed out. Members of the royal family often use official titles instead of personal names in formal records after marriage into the monarchy. In that context, the change could simply reflect royal protocol rather than anything unusual or suspicious. Still, Bauer interpreted the situation differently. In his view, someone who works in media and public life would be extremely aware of how records connect and how easily investigators can trace information across different documents. According to his reading, it could suggest a deliberate awareness of how paper trails work. But that interpretation remains one opinion among many. Supporters of Meghan Markle argue the explanation is far simpler. Royal titles were used because she had become the Duchess of Sussex, nothing more than a technical adjustment tied to royal tradition. And that brings the conversation to another issue critics sometimes raise, the legal implications they speculate about when discussing age discrepancies. During his research, Bauer reportedly spoke with legal experts about hypothetical scenarios involving incorrect personal details on official records. According to those discussions, if someone knowingly provided false information on formal documents such as contracts or certificates, it could raise legal questions depending on the circumstances. But it's important to stress something very clearly here. There has been no verified evidence showing that Meghan Markle provided false information on any official record. Public records and biographies consistently list her birth year as 1981, and no court or legal authority has challenged that fact. So, while critics debate theories and possibilities, there is currently no confirmed legal case or ruling connected to these claims. Even so, commentators who follow Bauer's arguments say the stakes would be huge in a situation like that. They point out that Meghan and Prince Harry have built major business partnerships in recent years through deals with companies such as Netflix and Spotify. These agreements, along with speaking appearances and brand partnerships, are often tied to a public figure's biography, public image, and professional background. Critics argue that if major details in those biographies were ever proven inaccurate, it could potentially raise questions about how contracts were negotiated. But again, there has been no confirmed claim from any company or court suggesting that Meghan Markle misrepresented personal information in those agreements. The deals remain active examples of how public figures expand their careers beyond traditional roles. According to Bauer's reporting, Meghan's team strongly rejected the claims raised in his book when it was released. Representatives criticized the allegations and described them as misleading. Legal representatives also reportedly contacted publishers to challenge aspects of the portrayal. However, the book itself remained available, and the debate surrounding its claims continued in media circles and online discussions. Supporters of Meghan say the reason she didn't publicly address every allegation is simple. Public figures are often advised not to respond to every controversial claim, because doing so can amplify stories rather than end them. Critics see the silence differently. They argue that when accusations appear in a widely discussed book, the absence of a detailed public rebuttal can leave questions lingering. In reality, public relations strategies vary widely depending on legal advice, media strategy, and the potential risks of engaging with controversial narratives.
Some commentators have suggested that releasing personal documents could theoretically shut down speculation. Others counter that public figures rarely release private documents simply to respond to rumors circulating online. In many cases, they rely on official records that already exist rather than creating new public disclosures. So the silence itself has become something people interpret in different ways. For some observers, it means nothing more than a strategic choice to avoid fueling controversy. For others, it keeps the debate alive because unanswered claims continue to circulate. At the end of his research, Tom Bower did not declare a specific birth year for Meghan Markle. He did not state definitively that she was born in 1973, 1975, or any other date. Instead, he presented what he described as a pattern of details that, in his view, deserved further scrutiny. Supporters of his work see that pattern as evidence worth investigating further. Supporters of Meghan Markle argue the opposite, that the examples rely on speculation, second-hand accounts, and normal administrative changes that are being interpreted in the most suspicious way possible. From their perspective, there is no verified evidence that contradicts the widely reported birth year of 1981. Still, Bower's portrait of Meghan in his writing is unmistakably critical. He describes her not just as an actress who appeared on the television drama Suits, but as someone who understands media narratives extremely well and who has carefully crafted her public identity over time. In Bower's view, the image presented to the world, the humanitarian, the outspoken advocate, the modern royal figure, the independent entrepreneur, represents a carefully built public persona. Critics who agree with him say that when you examine certain details closely, they believe inconsistencies begin to appear. Supporters, on the other hand, say that public figures often reinvent their public image as their careers evolve. Actors, politicians, and celebrities frequently reshape how they present themselves to the public as their roles change over time. That doesn't necessarily mean deception, it can simply mean adaptation to different stages of life. So where does the story go from here? Tom Bower is reportedly preparing a new edition of his book, and people close to the publishing world say it may include additional reporting and updated material. Whether that information introduces anything truly new remains to be seen. At the same time, Meghan Markle's professional life continues to evolve beyond the royal spotlight. After stepping back from senior royal duties with Prince Harry, the couple signed major media agreements with companies like Netflix and Spotify. Those projects brought global attention, though some of those partnerships have since shifted or concluded as media strategies change. In the entertainment industry, deals rise and fall constantly. Streaming projects launch, contracts end, and new ventures begin. That cycle is common for many public figures navigating media, business, and public life. But critics who follow Bower's investigation argue that if new material emerges, the debate around these questions could reignite once again. And if that happens, the conversation may expand beyond speculation and move back into headlines and public discussion. The real question now isn't just about the claims themselves. The real question is what happens if new documents, interviews, or records ever surface that either confirm the official timeline or challenge it in a way that forces the entire story back into the spotlight.